many months ago, Nestle India committed to more growth across its portfolio. Premiumization as also tapping the many Indias in India and maintaining profitability while doing all of this. Now, over the last several months, the company is said to have launched at least 40 products. How far has Nestle come in being a few products company to one that connects with many more Indian consumers? To answer that today, I'm joined by Suresh Narayanan, Chairman and Managing Director of Nestle India. Mr. Narayanan, thank you very much for speaking to us here at Bloomberg Quint.
Thank you very much, Menaka. Thank you for having me on your show.
Well, we're delighted. Since we're talking to you right after the release of the financial earnings, my first few questions have to do with the demand environment and some of your numbers. And so let me start by asking you to characterize the current environment of growth that you see in India, both in urban and rural markets, and what your outlook is for the rest of the year.
One of the issues, Menaka, which is quite clear as far as the Indian economy is concerned, is the importance, and in fact it is the pivotal nature of consumption. I think as a consumption economy, India continues to be attractive. If you look at the numbers that are available across FMCGs, the overall volume growth would be in the low to middle digits in terms of volume growth. In terms of value growth, it is in the region of about 10 to 11%. Overall terms, I would still say that despite all the other structural issues that we can talk about within the economic context, consumption and consumption-based products in consumer goods continues to be a relatively attractive business for most of the players. Now, clearly, urban India is changing quite dramatically, quite rapidly in terms of expectations, in terms of incomes, in terms of convenience, in terms of in product categories like ours for Nestle, seeking out not only taste but also nutrition, in terms of participation of women in the workforce, in terms of digital engagements, all of these, and last but not the least, Menaka, I think the emergence of Tier 2 and Tier 3 towns. I mean, earlier we were talking about 10, 11, maybe 50 cities as being key to the consumer goods business. Today we are talking about the next 600 towns, and I think there is, as you can see, not only latent demand that is arising there, but as a result of better aspirations, also the penetration of brands happening via e-commerce. So I think e-commerce is also playing the role there. So in overall terms, I would say that while certainly for Nestle, I see a overall robustness in terms of the demand environment. Also in rural India, if I can, though for Nestle, the rural play is relatively lower as compared to some of our peer groups in terms of portfolio, but I can see some healthy tractions there as well coming in. So consumption, I'm still a sector where I am quite positively enthused by what the future is likely to be.
Great. I want to get some specific financial questions to you rather quickly. One is that your domestic sales growth for the first quarter was at 6.3%, sure, and you said on a comparable basis it was estimated to be about 13.4%. Can you give me a volume growth figure? Because some analysts have estimated it to be about 11 to 12%. What was the volume growth at Nestle for the first quarter?
Sure. Out of the 13.4%, the volume growth is about 8.5%. So 8.5% and about 5% is the pricing impact. So this 8.5 has come, Menaka, across the portfolio. So I think what I am particularly pleased about and grateful to the consumers and also to the teams for enabling for Nestle is a secular growth across categories. It's not just one or two categories, but all categories that have contributed to growth. So the milks and nutrition categories have also had a fairly robust volume growth. The foods category has also had a strong double-digit growth. If I look at the categories of chocolates and confectionery, also some of our brands have done extremely well, upwards of 20-25% growth, and also in the coffee and beverages segment, we've had some very encouraging performance of brand Nescafe, which has also had strong double-digit growth. So overall terms, I believe that the growth has been secular. It has been volume based, in keeping with the overall simple strategy that we had put forward. Volume based, consumption based and penetration linked growth is what we were looking at, together with the platform of renovation innovation. So therefore, in the growth numbers that you are seeing, almost a fifth of the growth numbers have come out of innovation and renovation. So new products that have been put out into the market have also given their contribution.
Could you give me a
volume
breakup,
growth,
Mr. Narayanan? I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
Secular growth across categories.
Anyway, you can give me a breakup of what,
sure,
what the contribution of new products was. Also, this 8% that you refer to as volume growth is a marginal improvement on the 6% that you spoke of in August last year when you last spoke to analysts. Are you happy with it? Because your stated goal is to get a double-digit growth in terms of volume, and many of your peer groups have in fact already been
sure,
posting double-digit growth
sure,
in the last quarter.
Sure, sure. Look, I think as far as we are concerned, for us it's a mixed bag. So there are some categories of ours which are fairly mature and which are fairly stable, wherein getting a straight double-digit growth is a matter that is likely to take some time, and over a period of time you will be getting there. There are some other categories where very clearly what we have put together, both in terms of innovation, renovation and in terms of accelerating the pace, clearly double-digit growth has happened. So in chocolates and confectionery, in coffee and beverages, clearly double-digit growth has already happened, and also in brand Maggi and in the Maggi portfolio itself, the foods portfolio itself, double-digit growth has already happened in volume terms. So these are fairly strong, robust numbers that have been continuing over a period of time, and I think with the pace of renovation innovation, last time also we were talking about almost a fifth of growth coming out of renovation innovation. This time also we're talking about a fifth of growth coming out of renovation and innovation, and this is going to be a key platform for Nestle going forward in terms of accelerating the pace of growth and also improving the salience of our brands.
Fair enough. Renovation, innovation, if you could explain that to me also. I think you have spoken extensively over the last several months of the 40 to 43 or 45 new launches, some of which, many of which you've already done, some of which in the pipeline. Give us a sense of how they've performed, what's to come in the quarters. For instance, you've made an announcement on the breakfast of the cereal market. What is the potential beginning market share, let's say in the 6 months or the next 1 year? What is the size of that business you estimate for Nestle? So from the product point of view, what's the outlook? Where do you see the growth coming from in the next few months from new products?
Look, I think as far as innovation and renovation is concerned, one of the challenges in the Nestle organization that I have articulated even earlier is that the challenge for us is not what to launch but when to launch. So it's really it's a question of really how do we try and optimize the current portfolio, how do we put in new elements on the portfolio, and how do you marry that with the current competencies, both technical, commercial and route to market as far as the organization is concerned. So in that context, the innovation renovation of the 30 to 35 odd products has been secular. So it has been across different product categories, not been focused on any one particular category. That is a dimension that is likely to continue into the future as well, because indeed it is a virtuous circle. Once you find that products tend to work, then you are in a position to come up with new propositions. Now clearly the innovation and renovation game is not about 100% success. So the fact of the matter is that we have put out these products into the market. Evaluations are on to see which of these are going to be the racehorses for the future. And in a brutally competitive market where success rates for new products are sometimes even less than 5%, I'm happy to say that more than half of what we have put forward in terms of new products have already started to work and have already started to contribute to the overall growth of the company. Now, Coming to the breakfast cereals opportunity, as you know, Nestle SA has got a joint venture with General Mills under the name of Cereal Partners Worldwide, that is represented in about 130 countries with 50 plus offerings in terms of different breakfast cereals. Clearly, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. We all know it. Some of us practice it well. Others probably do not give credence to it or do not give the importance that it deserves. Now, clearly, this segment is a segment where there is room for product differentiation, and there is also room in terms of the contributions on nutrition, health, and wellness that Nestle can make, and that is really what we'll be looking at as an entry in the coming period.
How large do you estimate at the entry level is the size of the opportunity for cereals?
Well, you know, as per the industry estimates, the number is that is being talked about is something like 35,000 tons. That's the total kind of size of the breakfast cereal market. That's what the available figures suggest. I would really think that the numbers probably are higher than what is being currently estimated, and that is where the opportunities for companies lie in terms of expanding the territory for the breakfast habit.
Mr. Narayanan, thank you. I know the size of the market. What is the size of the opportunity for you in the first 1 year, if you could share that with me in terms of a target?
Oh, well, I think at this stage, Menaka, I would really, you know, we are still in the phase of putting the final offerings on the anvil, and I think in due course we will realize, and I will be happy to share with you what is it that we would like to look at. But clearly, since we have the competence in this category, it is not going to be a very modest kind of entry that we'll be looking at.
Okay. What else can we expect from Nestle in the next few quarters? Breakfast cereal, something you've articulated already. What other either product categories, not the incremental variations of existing products, but more so the new categories that Nestle hopes to enter to be able to do all of what you've spoken of in the last several months, whether it is to pursue premiumization or to pursue the many Indias within one India?
Well, the many Indias within India is already something that is an operational dimension of the company. We do have 14 to 15 odd clusters that we have put together, which are virtual teams between marketing, between commercial, supply chain, and the customer and sales organization to really optimize on the opportunities, both geographic, category, brand, and channel. This is really to try and sharpen the levels of investments, the levels of resourcing, the levels of execution capabilities on the ground, and this, I believe, is a strong proposition. It has also been experimented and done by a couple of organizations, but I believe that this is something that will be an important dimension of unlocking and unleashing the growth potentials in some of the geographies by not following a one-size-fits-all kind of marketing model, but really trying to tailor-make the model to the specifics of particular geographies. So that would be an area that would be further accelerated upon and further worked upon in terms of the execution capabilities of the company. There is, and today in fact we have just launched our ready-to-drink coffee in cans. So that is something under the brand Nescafe. So that's something that will be a new offering on the market. As you go forward, you will see initiatives around premiumization on coffee. You will see new offerings in the foods category, and you will see new offerings in the chocolate and confectionery category as well. The new category entry that we are talking about is clearly breakfast cereals, and I think given all the portfolio that is currently on the table and what we are adding, I think that gives a lot of tasks, a lot of hard work, and a lot of challenge and opportunity for the organization Nestle.
In the food category, Mr. Narayanan, is there a plan to go beyond the Maggi brand, which is the predominant brand that Nestle is identified with in this country, especially, you know, I think amongst a certain demographic outside of, you know, baby food and milk and all of that. Are you looking at more ready-to-eat food product categories to sort of penetrate in India? Is there a plan that you could share with us on that?
Well, clearly there are a number of concepts that are under exploration at the moment, and these encompass areas that you also talked about. I think at the moment what we really want to do is, Menaka, to ensure that the organization sticks to a path of manageable renovation and innovation and category entries in order to maximize the growth opportunities that we see in the marketplace. So we don't want to have a blunderbuss of numerous initiatives being rolled out and then not being able to manage it consistently over a period of time. I have had, I think, considerable experience at trying to see that the organization has a pair of steady hands at the wheel, and not that we try and do too many things that will distract us from the core objective of increasing the salience of penetration and volume-led growth along with innovation and renovation together in the model of the many Indias within India that we seek to actualize our growth opportunities.
Okay, a very quick question on this cluster-based strategy that you've spoken of before and you just spoke of right now again. Any immediate outcomes from that you can share with us to help us gauge how much of a success it's been, or how it's added to the financials, or how it may have added to distribution? Anything that allows us to gauge or measure what that strategy has meant for Nestle?
Well, fundamentally, I think the one thing that I would like to add is that it is not that this was a completely and totally new blueprint that was put forward. Nestle has always believed in thinking global and acting local, not only as an organization globally, but also in terms of its tenets operating locally. Now, a few of the things that clearly work out is some of our category related growths in geographies has been the result of putting a sharper strategy in place. The expansions in distribution that we have seen in certain geographies has also been the consequence of this strategy being put in place. Certain sharper focus in terms of advertising and digital orientation has also been as a result of this strategy being in place, and some of the new launches and some of the ways in which we do new launches also undergoes a change as a consequence of this. All of this collectively should add to the pantheon of growth along with sustained profitability for the organization.
Any short illustration you can offer me for me to understand better how this cluster-based, like for instance you mentioned certain growth in certain geographies as well as distribution in certain geographies has gotten augmented by this cluster-based strategy. Any illustrations or numbers that you can share on that?
Sure, really. I mean, for example, we've got a brand called Masala Magic, which is under the Maggi range, which is a fortified seasoning for vegetables, right, and across different parts of India. Now, this which was kind of focused on one or two geographies in the country, primarily in the Hindi-speaking belt, has now got extended in terms of a clear clarity of focus to parts of the south, with adaptation in terms of the kind of distribution, the kind of communication, and the kind of relevance in terms of the product profiles that they are best suited for. This has already started an initial reaction that has been quite positive for us, and I think this is unleashed in itself a wave of new innovations that would follow upon this to capitalize on the opportunity even more. So what it really helps us, Menaka, is not only to sharpen the edge of the execution cycle, but it also helps to generate new ideas in terms of innovation, in terms of route to market, in terms of managing the channel, brand and category, and also in terms of the investments that we are able to put in each of these geographies. I think that is where the span and the capability of the organization is enhanced with a larger, with a more sharper and a more focused approach to the opportunity.
Okay, fair enough. A quick question on your margins. You've seen a fairly solid jump in margins, if I may point out, in the first quarter of this year. That's the January to March quarter. I think one research report put it at about 500 basis points almost. This on the back of your premiumization strategy as well as lower costs. How sustainable is this increase in margins?
Look, I think I want to be very clear. If you look at it, yes, indeed, the report is right. It was about 570 basis points was the enhancement of the margin. Out of this, about 130 to 140 basis point is really what one would call the base effect. So there's a GST base effect that you need to take out of the equation. The rest of it is really coming out of admittedly a relatively benign sort of commodity impact that we have had, plus coming out of the entire Maggi episode, there's also economies of scale that we have been able to benefit from as a consequence of escalation in the overall throughput and volumes of the company. Both of these contributing, both the benign commodity effect and the scale effect, and of course the base effect of GST is what is resulting in the kind of margins that you have seen. Going forward, I think it's very clear. A lot will depend on how the commodity tailwinds that one has seen translate. What will be the kind of impact of the overall fuel prices, and of course also the question of what happens to the rupee in terms of its strength or weakness. So clearly these have been fairly compelling circumstances that have also been accountable for the sharp sort of uptick in the margins that you've seen.
All right, so I'll take that to mean that they're not necessarily, sustainable depending on all the various factors that you put in. A couple of new trends in the business overall that I wanted to get your thoughts on.
All I would only say is, sorry.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but I think all I would just like to say is that the fact of the matter is that I'm giving you the kind of breakdown of what has happened in the first quarter. As a company, you know very well, Menaka, we don't give guidance on what the future is going to look like. I hope things are optimistic and good, but I think there are pressure points that would tend to build up over a period of time. So I guess that's where I would like to leave it.
Okay, fair enough.
Sorry, on with your question.
Yeah, no, I think the future is what I'm going to ask you about. And it's unfortunately in this one, I hope you will commit yourself. You know, a couple of changes that I wanted to get your thoughts on. One is in the retail trade. For instance, we've just seen the Walmart, Flipkart deal that took place. Now, I've read through some of your comments earlier on how e-commerce is still a very marginal part of the entire business. Even modern retail is still only 8, 9, 10% of all retail. But it does interest me to know how, as a foods company, or a consumer goods company, you look at this changing model of distribution and retail, because at one time what was the main advantage of companies like Hindustan Unilever or ITC or yourself was distribution. E-commerce is changing all of that, is killing all of that. Data now is the big thing when it comes to consumers. Sure. So how do you view some of these larger changes? I know they may not mean anything in the next quarter or the next year, but over the next few years.
Look, I think the kind of a clear outcome of the types of investments that one has seen in the e-commerce space, and indeed what has been seen also in the evolution of the organized trade in this country, are giving 2 or 3 clear opportunity areas for consumer good companies. Number one is that while at the moment, admittedly, the contribution of food to the e-commerce space is relatively small. It is smaller than, for example, cosmetics and personal care products, or indeed much lower than what you have in the telecom space. But the fact of the matter is that clearly it gives opportunities in terms of sharply focused products, both premium, along with a service with the platform of e-commerce helping you in order to navigate the path for the consumer. That's number one. Number two is, as a consequence of the significant investment that we have seen between Walmart and Flipkart, I do hope this translates into investments in the backward chain to improve the total and overall access that farmers and suppliers have into the value chain, and this in itself improving the overall course of both pricing and also the realization of the various vendors, including farmers, in the total value equation of organizations. That is clearly the second opportunity that this will bring about. The third opportunity very clearly is that over a period of time, I think companies have to start doing the arbitrage between doing their own distribution direct reach models versus utilizing models such as e-commerce. Now today if you look at it, tier 2 and tier 3 towns, probably even for companies like Nestle, while we are fairly strong on distribution, the e-commerce surge is happening in these towns, largely I presume because of availability gaps and because of the incapacity in some categories to be able to satisfy the demand. Now this in itself will open up a new channel of consumption and also a new channel of consumers to be able to come into the categories that we are operating in. So there are 2 or 3 clear benefits. However, I am a pragmatist, and my pragmatic side tells me that if e-commerce today is 1% or 2% or maybe 3% of consumer goods companies, it is not suddenly going to go to 10% and 15% overnight. Modern trade took all of 15-20 years to get to where it is. It will be a gradual journey. The mom and pop store, the kirana store will still be an important dimension of doing business in the consumer goods space.
Okay, fair enough. The second trend that I wanted to get your comments on is something that Nestle itself has done rather interestingly worldwide, which is your deal with Starbucks. Here's a company that has one of the best known coffee brands in the world, and I'm referring to Nestle and Nescafe. And then you sort of sign this $7 billion deal or $8 billion deal with Starbucks to be able to distribute their products, which are A, more premiumly priced, B, appeal to a different demographic. And I'm wondering what it tells us about consumption patterns in the world and how equipped companies like yours are with brands for the future.
Well, I think it's fair to say, Menaka, that as far as consumers in coffee are concerned, brands like Nescafe and Nespresso and Starbucks indeed have got their role and relevance depending on the age, life cycle, the affordability and the access models that these brands have offered consumers over a period of time. I think what it is basically telling is that Nestle is opening itself in terms of opportunities, not just in instant coffee but beyond, and I think that is really the kind of opportunity that will be unleashed over a period of time. At the moment, of course, the impact of this would be probably in the US, where there's a significant business, and in expansion plans of China, as has been indicated. It will probably be till the end of the year till the deal will be fully fructified. Time alone will tell how this pans out for the rest of the world, including India. But it's a very interesting dimension of the types and hues of coffee consumption that is taking place across the world, and that is where the opportunity lies.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I wonder if you'd let me submit that it also is a telling story of how companies like yours that have been around for a long time with some venerable brands are now maybe seeing the need to rejuvenate some of that with brands that were born outside. But I mean, that's always been the story of consumer goods. One last question, and that has to do with GST. In a month or so from now, we will complete 1 year of the implementation of GST in this country. It's been a turbulent road for everybody involved. There's 2 parts to this question. One, are you finally able to, as a company, start unlocking some of the efficiencies, the supply chain efficiencies that GST, promised at the beginning? And if yes, can you quantify those? And B, there is news that you had to pay a certain amount to the National Anti-Profiteering Authority for some price benefits that you were not able to pass on immediately. Could you clarify that information?
Let me take the second question first. I think I want to say this very categorically, very honestly, very sincerely, in all transparency. The discussion with the Anti-Profiteering Authority was transparent, was professional, was cordial, and was around the question of the GST benefits that needed to be passed on to the consumers. And because of a commercial lag time between the reduction of GSTs and its translation into packs, both with revised prices and with revised offerings in terms of grammages, there is a certain lead time which is actual and practical. I mean, the fact is that you have to print everything, get all the process done in order to make it happen, and then the products have to reach the shelf. Also, I think there are the practicalities in terms of coinages, because if you have an impact of, let's say, 25 paise or 50 paise, it's very difficult when the coins are not available to translate this into a consumer proposition. Sure. In some cases, if you start changing the grammage of your products in order to offer better value, the taste proposition of the brand starts to change, and that has a further effect as far as the consumer proposition itself is concerned. All these factors were discussed, and in fact, suo motu, I repeat, suo motu, Nestle India offered that, look, there is a certain amount of money that we have set aside that we have not been able to pass on. What would you like us to do with the money that is available? I think in that discussion, it was done very transparently and extremely cordially. The suggestion came that we should deposit this in the consumer fund. I think it is being set up in order to ensure that this enablement happens. So it is, I repeat, suo motu, it is professional, it is keeping in view the transparency and the governance standards that we maintain of the highest quality in the company, and the discussions have been extremely cordial and have been extremely professional. So that's on the second question. On the first part of it, I believe that initially, of course, the GST, which is India's biggest fiscal transition, did come and rightfully would come with its teething problems. As far as we were concerned as a company, I think I'm proud to say that my team was well prepared, along with our distributors, along with our suppliers. We in fact trained 3,500 suppliers on the GST model and how we need to conduct business as we go forward. The transition therefore was relatively smooth as far as we were concerned. I think the process has gone on. I do not come across the e-way bill, for example, has also been a relatively smooth transition as far as we are concerned. Now, as far as the government is concerned, they have recently announced an easing up in the manner in which the returns need to be submitted. I think this will make for even better ease of doing business as far as GST is concerned. The levels of compliance that I am seeing in the market is also improving. I think people who were hesitant in terms of participation in the trade are now coming back into the trade. So in overall terms, I think the change of the largest kind that we have seen seems to have settled in place, and only time will tell as to how we are able to improve upon this as we move forward.
All right, Mr. Narayanan, appreciate you speaking with us here at Bloomberg Quint. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Menaka. Thank you very much for having me on your show, and thank you very much for your questions. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm late.